centro de la pampa vive un pimiento. Sol y viento pa' su vida, sol y viento.
Hello, I am Patrick Barnard. Welcome to the 21st edition of the Pimento Report. This one is called Meadowbrook, The People Speak. We have done 4 straight Pimento reports on the Meadowbrook issue. Meadowbrook is that precious piece of green space just to the west over here of great ecological value. It is a green space that Montrealers do not want to lose to condo development. The fight for Meadowbrook has attracted great support from opinion leaders, the Suzuki Foundation, and just yesterday, a public comment from Equiterre's environmentalist Stephen Guilbeault. Il faut sauvegarder Meadowbrook. Meadowbrook must be saved. One of the key moments in what is now a public movement was on Monday, April 19th, when more than 400 people converged on Montreal City Hall demanding that the government of Mayor Gérald Tremblay save Meadowbrook as a natural space. What follows is an up-close look at the comments of citizens on April 19th and after, all actors in this environmental story. Let's go first, outside of City Hall on April 19th, and look and listen to the people speak.
Well, essentially the strategy is to ask questions, to be present here and show and demonstrate that there is an interest for Meadowbrook and that residents of the community, residents of Montreal want Meadowbrook to be protected because it is something that's important for much of Montreal, not just for residents that are adjacent, but for pretty much all of the greater southwestern Montreal region and eventually for the rest as well. It's a central site that's easily accessible for very much large quantities of the community.
I hope that at the very least, that City of Montreal will come out and say that they're ready to establish a working group, to establish a group consisting of Montreal, Lachine, Côte-Saint-Luc, Montreal West, to come to a modus vivendi with regards to the saving and conservation and renaturalization of Meadowbrook.
I believe that we need more green spaces, and if you look at Parc La Fontaine, you look at Montreal Park, and once you head east, I think the next largest space we have is like in Beaconsfield. So Meadowbrook really needs to be protected, especially if we're going to start bringing young families into Montreal that just aren't looking for housing only, but they're looking for quality of life, and a park really fits that quality of life.
Well, I hope to see representation from around the island. I think, you know, what this space that we're after, Meadowbrook, is all about is providing space for Montrealers. It's not just for the locals, it provides benefits for everyone.
Just before the April 19th meeting, Dr. Stephen Vider of McGill University, who also asked a question at City Hall that evening, published an op-ed in the Montreal Gazette indicating how important green spaces are for health. Green spaces reduce air pollution, absorb carbon dioxide, encourage recreation, cool ambient air, and promote benign health outcomes, particularly among disadvantaged populations.
He's absolutely right. People in the environmental community have been sensitive to the issue that he raised for a long, long time. And it's not just our physical health, it's our mental health and our social health that benefits from having these places. We need to, once and for all, right now, get this job done, and it'll be done forever. And it'll be there for posterity. This will be a benefit, not just for this generation, but for generations into the future.
For the generations.
For the generations.
I'm looking for a commitment. I'm looking for a commitment that they're going to save Meadowbrook and turn it into a nature park, as they should have done long ago. That's the point. The point isn't to be exclusionary. The point is to be inclusive. And this is for everybody's future. This isn't for the few. This is for everyone.
We used to say that about 50% of Montrealers born and raised here on the island never get off the island. 50%. So they don't have a country cottage to run off to in the Laurentians, and it's wonderful for them to have these nature parks on our island so that they have a bit of nature en ville.
On April 19th, inside the City Hall doors, the public began to enter the main vestibule before going upstairs to the Salle d'Honneur. The Tremblay administration conceded very little on April 19th. Jimmy Zubris led the questioning as hundreds watched him on the screen set up in the Salle d'Honneur right next to the council chamber itself. At the same time, at one point, nearly 200 people were arbitrarily forced to wait outside the doors of City Hall.
What we have is a separation of powers. Here's the people out here. Inside are the guys that make the decision, and God forbid they be exposed to what we want, because they're only going to listen to the corporate dictates that... That's the voice of the people.
I think what's been critical here today is that Richard Bergeron, who was appointed by Gerald Tremblay from another party onto the executive committee in charge of urban planning, declaring himself the way he did, unequivocally, he wants to see Meadowbrook as part of an urban plan that provides for people's needs in the outdoors.
Well, I don't think we got any answers from the administration. I think what they're doing is pretty much waiting to see what the developer's going to come up with, and then they're going to come up with some plan, but it seems they're definitely set on developing the property, and at the same time, I don't think they know exactly what they want to do with it. So hopefully they'll see the opposition, and maybe they'll make even the developer might back down if he sees this type of opposition.
What's your impression of tonight?
Oh, this is a fabulous crowd here to really show the will of the people. Now, we do hope our politicians follow the will of the people.
And what about the people who were prevented from coming in? What did you think of that?
I found that really distressing. In fact, I had my foot in the door for a time trying to get in, and managed it after a bit. But there were a good number of people, about 200 at one point, that were unable to enter this big hall, which was about half full at the time.
Now, a reporter told me that the people at City Hall don't like noisy crowds, but is there something more to this than that?
I think it's they're flexing their muscles a little bit and showing their power over the people, which is distressing to see, because in fact they should be responding to this rather joyful crowd that are defending Meadowbrook.
A week after the City Hall meeting, on April the 28th, 2010, leaders of Montreal and other municipalities gathered at the Biodiversity Summit of the Conseil Régional de l'Environnement, where they signed the Declaration of the Island of Montreal Community in favor of biodiversity and greening. Well, defenders of a green Meadowbrook were there as well, the Green Coalition's Al Hayek and Côte Saint-Luc councillor Dieter Burku. Burku had just been told by Montreal's Alain de Souza in an agglomeration meeting that Meadowbrook would be subsumed under Montreal's policy for large projects. She had asked de Souza what that meant.
And Mr. de Souza answered, when the developer deposits his project, then that will trigger the cadre de gouvernance des grands projets. I found that to be very interesting, because it just shows the total reversal of the Executive Committee. What the Executive Committee has now done is they've taken the Lebrecq Commission report, which recommended the preservation of Meadowbrook, and they've turned it into a process which is going to study a development proposal. They've completely turned it on its head.
Well, Montreal wants to be a leader internationally. How can the city possibly be a leader internationally if it can't take the obvious step of using a site that's practically given to them by fate?
Montreal can't have it both ways. Okay, I think the time for decisions is coming down. I think the crunch is coming, and they'll have to decide which way they want to go. They can't be called a green city, and I think what's going to happen is that if they continue in these ways, they are going to be exposed for what they are. That they have not been doing enough for green space, that they've been presenting an image of being a green city, but in fact they are lacking. And I think that's going to be exposed.